go last. Now, if Spencer or Freddie were here, it'd be okay. But I was thinking too about like when we used to get our whipping, Mom would make us all line up. They would try to go, we're going to go by age. And sometimes, you just start out doing the age thing, but after a while, no. The younger ones, you two get up here. I'm telling you, one thing that I never figured out is, man, it hurts just as bad going last. I didn't get to feel what the first four went through, but to me, when it got to me, it hurt all the same. And I remember when she would tell us, she said, you know what? I could whip you all, and you guys would be good for 3 days. Yeah. Like, how'd she come up with this? She whip us and then just watch us each day. All right, 3 days is up, and here's the 4th day. Line up. Being us five, there was always something that we did. And I like to thank the Martin Luther King Scholarship Committee for inviting me, along with my brothers, to come and speak. I consider it an honor, having won the scholarship and how it benefited me. It was truly a blessing to me. Everything counted. Everything was used. When I went to college, there was not $1 left on the floor. So and I'm still paying it back today. Every dollar counts. And one of the guys, and as you've heard my brothers talk some about Martin Luther King, there was one thing that really had an impact in my life when it came to Martin Luther King. And it was a speech that he gave. It was a speech that he gave to a junior high school in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I think it was in 1967. And the title of that speech is, "What is in your life's blueprint?" And I thought, this ought to be interesting. So I listened to it on YouTube. So you got YouTube, young kids, Martin Luther King, what is in your life's blueprint? And today, a lot of times, instead of using your life's blueprint, we use our personal design. What's our personal design? Each one of us was put down here on this earth with a purpose. There's something that each one of us can do that no one else can do better than us if we truly put our mind and heart to it. I truly believe a lot of us, there's a lot of individuals that have gone through their whole life and never figured out what it was that they were put down on this earth for. When I think about Martin Luther King, I think, here's an individual that tried to commit suicide twice at a young age. Here's an individual that at a very young age did not know his purpose. So just think and imagine if he had succeeded in his suicides at his young age. I know the one he jumped out of the second floor building and tried to commit suicide when his grandmother passed. But it makes me stop and think. Just think what would have happened, what we would have lost if that had occurred. But then we can all look at our own lives and we can see that there are things that occurred in our own lives that could have stopped us. I look back at my brothers and I, some of the things we did. Oh my goodness. Mom said I was sitting in the living room at the projects and see something fly past the window. I'm like, what was that? She runs out there and there's Michael. He fell out the second story building. And he landed in the bush. And she's like, I run back in there, I'm all worried. I'm hugging Michael up, making sure everything's right. And then no sooner or later, I see another fly out the window. And she goes over there, oh, what's going on? And there's me. I was like up there looking like, what did Michael do? But I didn't land in the bush. But I just thank the Lord. Like, we're still here. We're still able to fulfill what is in our personal design. Well, one of the things that he recommended to the students in that particular speech, he recommended to them, the first thing that he recommended that they have in their life's blueprint was a deep, deep belief in your own worth, a deep belief in your own dignity, and then that last part, a deep belief in your own somebodyness. I'm like, I gotta look up this word, somebodyness. Like, oh, did you know it's in the dictionary? Oh, wow. The believing that you are somebody. So that was one of the things he said, and that he recommended to them, is that you make sure that you know your worth, that you know your dignity, and that you know your own somebodyness. And I tell folks today, I said that was one thing that Linda K. Ferguson did to 5 boys back in the 1970s in those Wilson Street projects. She let us know our own worth, our own dignity, and our own somebodyness. I stop and I think about this is before. Now, when we got good at sports, and we could play football, we could play basketball, we could play baseball, and we ran track, people began to recognize who you were, and they began to like you, for what you can do. They like you. But I think about how my mom liked all of us before we did anything. Before we had any accomplishment, she liked us. We hadn't achieved anything yet. And I'm telling you, we were bad. We were bad, but she liked us. And to me, it's like, it takes a special person. And I think, too, there's an incident where we were small and she was in a bad car wreck and she broke her neck. And she rushed home. She got herself well again to come home to take care of us. Because she knew who's going to take care of 5 little bad boys. And when she came, I remember coming home from Winchester Avenue, and there she was. She had this big old halo on, and all of us were standing back at the door. Because we were trying to figure out, we'd never seen a halo before. And she's over, come on, give me hugs. Here. We're all like that. And we're looking at Curtis, you're the oldest girl. That's how it was. That was the experience we had, and I didn't know until years later that she got herself well again just to take care of us. Just to make sure that those 5 boys had someone to take care of them. And then, as they mentioned about college, she made up this little song, we're going to college, we're going to college. And she was singing that to us over here at Wilson Street. So when people look and they say, oh, you guys have degrees and you guys accomplished this, I said, well, when we were poor, we were on welfare, we were living over in those projects, according to my mom, we already had degrees. We hadn't achieved anything yet, but according to her, we had already achieved. We had already gotten our degrees. And I just think, how does she know to teach us that? Based on her own upbringing. How does she know to instill that in us? She must have been able to look and see that unless you do this, you're going to have a hard time succeeding in this world. And that was one of the things that she helped us with. Whenever we faced opposition, she stood with us. Whenever we faced oppression growing up, she stood with us. Whenever we went through anything, heartache, pain, whatever, she stood with us. And I thank the Lord that she stood with us. And then I always stop and I think about how important it is to have people to inject positivity into your life. This world alone has enough negativity. All on your own, you can live and get enough negativity in your life every day. You can go to work and you can have folks complaining about this, complaining about that. You can turn on the news and folks complaining about this and that. You can, look over to your significant other. I'm not talking about you, Renee. And they can complain, and there's enough negativity. But it's a special thing to all of a sudden get positivity. To have people inject positivity into your life. And Curtis mentioned, Mr. Murphy, at a young age, telling him, oh, you got good grades, Curtis. You can go to college. Michael mentioned his advisor in college. For me, it was a reading teacher named Miss Marquette at North Middle. Miss Marquette said, Doug, you look like you're having it too easy in this class. You need to get moved up to classes that are more challenging. I said, Miss Marquette, I'm fine. I had my best friend, Vincent Lee, my cousin and best friend sitting next to me in all my classes. I said, Miss Marquette, I'm fine. I didn't know she was going to call Mom and tell her. Mom's like, well, you getting moved up, Doug? I was like, I can't fight her. I can't win this battle. She moved me up. And when she moved me up, she put me in the front of all my classes. And I'm like, man, Not only am I in these classes, and Vincent's over in the classroom next over, but I'm at the front of the classes. And I was like, man, this teacher's going to ask me questions, and man, I'm going to look embarrassed when I don't know the answer. So every day I went home and I studied, and I made sure I knew every answer. Every time the class, she'd go around and say, who got the answer? You got the answer? Doug, do you have the answer? I had the answer. And pretty soon she knew Doug had the answer. But for me, it was just not to look embarrassed. That's what it was. That's the driver for me, is I didn't want to feel like I was going to be embarrassed, because these weren't the folks I hung out with on the playground. They were in the other class. But it drove me, and it kept making me to the point where I wanted to make sure I was the best in every class, because I didn't want to look embarrassed. I wanted to make sure that if they asked a question, nobody else knew the answer, I knew it. But to me, Miss Marquette saw that in me. I didn't see it in me. I was just having fun back here with Vincent. We were just clowning around. But she figured, hey, that's enough of that. And then there's another individual that Renee and I have had the fortune to talk with. She's an Olympic gold medalist, bronze medal, played in the WNBA. And she was talking about, those individuals to her that injected positivity into her life. She named her mother and father, but there were two individuals that she said, these individuals were ones that injected positivity in my life. The one was her oldest brother, Don, and it was Don's wife, Tracy. She said, Don would always tell me the truth. No matter how bad it was, she would tell me, this is where you're at, Vicki. This is what you need to do to get better. And I remember Vicki telling us a story. She's like, man, I went to try out for my first Olympic team. She says, I was nervous. And Don said, you get in there, Vicki, and you play defense. If you play defense, you're going to make this team. So Vicki got in there, said, I was playing defense. And boy, the coach pulled me to the side, and the coach said, well, Vicki, do you want to make this Olympic team? She's like, yeah, coach, my brother told me if I get in here and I play defense, I'm going to make the team. They're like, well, yeah, that's true, Vicki, but we'd like to see if you can score. Vicki went out, she scored. She says, I was the last person picked on that team. She got herself a gold medal. Next time around, she got herself a bronze medal. And then she played in the WNBA. She said she would have been here today, but she's up there, of course, at West Virginia Wesleyan, and she's coaching. And she said Don would bring her mom, so I said, Don, you follow through. So now when I talk to her again, I can tell her I saw both of them. But anyway, they injected positivity into her life. And then there was one other individual I'll share with you that he's a Pineville, West Virginia native. He talked about an English teacher named Miss McKinney. In Pineville, I had to look on the map for West Virginia to find out where Pineville was. I was like, whoa, that's deep down there in West Virginia. I don't think I've ever been down that far. But he talked about there was an English teacher that he had. And this English teacher saw his ability and saw what he could become. And she said, this English teacher wrote to a coach on his behalf. He said, Coach, this is a fine young man. I believe you should come and take a look at him. Pineville, West Virginia. So I can imagine him getting out the map too, and it probably wasn't even on the map back then. But anyway, this coach came to Pineville, West Virginia and saw him play, and ended up giving him a scholarship to his school. And then once he graduated from his school, he went on to the NFL and played for the Seattle Seahawks. Kurt Warner. He's a former West Virginia, native West Virginia, who's an English teacher, Miss McKinney. I'm reading his book right now, The Warner Boys. He gives a lot of credit to Miss McKinney for his course in life. All because an individual took and injected positivity. And to us, and I look at my brothers, it's all been about individuals that we've come across in our path that have injected positivity in our life. Like I said, there's enough negativity already out there. But one of the things, though, that I'd like to do, just in closing, is to all the Martin Luther King recipients, the high school recipients, to reiterate what Martin Luther King said. Realize your own worth, realize your own dignity, and realize your own somebodiness. With that, thank you.